You're listening to BFM 89.9, the business station.
A very good afternoon. I'm Frida Liu. You're listening to Enterprise on BFM 89.9, and this is where you get educated and enlightened with the tools to help you succeed in your business. I'm speaking to Krishna Rajagopal from AKATI Consulting in our Tech Talk segment. And today we're talking about the major threats affecting Malaysian users today. So just to get us started, what does AKATI Consulting do?
Hi, Frida. Well, what we do is we're actually involved in computer security consulting, where we help clients to secure their networks and their systems, as well as a business aspect as well. And then we actually get involved in computer forensics investigation.
Computer forensics investigation.
Yes.
Pray tell, what would that be?
Well, we help corporations as well as enforcements in different parts of the world, where we work hand in hand with them, and we actually investigate cybercrime, different types of cybercrime, and actually find the culprit who actually did it. And of course, if they want us to be an expert witness in the court, we do that as well.
So it's like CSI minus dead bodies.
Yes, and also not those flying cars and stuff.
Okay, so when you talk about these crimes, what types of crimes usually happen online?
Well, a whole lot of crimes. Generally, we're talking about three types of cybercrime. Type 1 is where you've got a criminal using a computer attacking another computer. This is usually known as type 1 forensics. And that's a typical hacker hacking an online bank, defacing a website, those kind of stuff. And then we've got type 2, which is more on fraud. Superimposing pictures, changing out of bank statements, where the crime is actually ethics, right? And then we've got type 3, where usually forensics professionals are brought in for a homicide, robbery, or anything of that sort, where you're supposed to just investigate maybe a handphone or a laptop or a memory card or a SIM card and see if there's any evidential value in that.
All right, so a large bulk of that affects, obviously, money.
Yes,
it affects businesses in a major way. So, and obviously that's why people do that. So, reasons on why we get hacked, and it's both the public and private sectors that gets affected.
Yes, that's true. Because the thing is that why do we get hacked for the most part of the time is that most people feel that information security is a luxury. We don't really need that, Come on, that's eating up our capital expense. Let's just throw it out, And what actually the situation has become in today's world is that information security is more than essential, right? You can't live without it. Even some people consider it as one of the three pillars of an organization. You've got sales, marketing, accounting, audit, and information security, right? And I refer it as information security because it's not IT security. Information in any perspective, whether it's a piece of paper or in a computer.
Okay, so people always think, all right, it's just an IT investment. Mm-hmm. So how do these hackers go about penetrating your systems? What are the popular ones? Okay.
Well, there's lots of ways, actually. In fact, we actually have a blog on our website, and we actually post all the new techniques. But generally, a typical hacker has its own methodology. Even hackers have methodologies nowadays, They follow a framework. And it's
and they have a roadmap.
Exactly. And there's a vision there, and they always try to do some reconnaissance on the victim, try to find out how do they get in, what's the right time to come in, and then which way do I get in, that's scanning, and then they will now look and say, is it worthwhile for me to get in? That's enumeration, and then they attack. And then right after attacking, they actually cover their tracks, put in some backdoors, Trojans, so the next time they don't have to go through the entire step all over again. And then they cover their tracks and come out clean. And that's a common step around the world.
Okay. And what are you've got some on your blog as well. There's some predictions for 2009.
Yes. In fact, it's up today. Okay. You could have a look at it. We actually first presented it in Nigeria. In the start of the year, but we realized that let's just share it, and because the predictions have been coming out true. In fact, some of the things that are hot for 2009, when we say hot in the sense that these are the things that will be well targeted, are basically Blackberries, iPhones. There's this huge craze about this right now, and people are going to target that. Just like when the US government decided to use Macs instead of PCs, all of a sudden you started seeing exploits on Mac, right? So it's all about the interest. And then there's the other area, which is basically server obfuscation. Yeah. And that's basically where it's a very clever way of actually masking a worm or a Trojan or a virus, where because most of them know that you have an antivirus. So if I'm going to send an attachment on an email, it's going to be busted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a very interesting story where they've been targeting, for example, Benazir Bhutto's incident, Obama's inauguration, the whole thing. So, for example, Obama's inauguration, they'll send you an email with a newsletter and say, wow, Obama's inauguration, click here to read more, right? Now, when you click on it, it leads you to a web server where the virus is stored. And it gets downloaded into your Internet Explorer's memory space. So what happens is permissions don't apply, you don't need to log in, you're in, crash, boom, bang.
Where's the money in that?
Well, there is a serious issue because what happens is there was actually a real story about a guy, a Colombian guy, who actually led his lavish lifestyle on this. Now what he used to do is, of course, his technique was less techy, yeah? His was what they used as keyloggers. And what he did was he cleverly created some worms that had keyloggers in them. And he started going out to airline lounges and hotel business centers, and he started installing them. Now, when people use, and people are oblivious to this sometimes, they just go online banking and say, oh, computer with internet, let me go online banking, right? And then they check the emails, they punch in their credit card details. He gets all this stuff, and then he feeds his lifestyle based on that. So when they actually caught him, they caught him flying on a flight where the airline ticket was bought on someone's credit card. He was using a laptop bought on someone's credit card. So basically everything he had was stolen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. BFM 89.9, I'm speaking to Krishna Rajagopal from AKATI Consulting in our Tech Talk segment, and we're talking about the major threats affecting Malaysian users today. Now that you've scared us, how do we go about fixing it?
All right. Generally, we usually suggest to people that, first of all, start off with a framework. Let's not get excited with all this techie stuff and say, okay, it's Oracle or systems, Cisco or Microsoft. Let's go on to the paper. Let's look at a framework that you can suggest. Of course, what I'm going to say is referring to SMEs. Yeah, for a large enterprise, it may differ slightly. Now, for a typical SME, we would start off with the three basic things. I'm sure some of our listeners who are techies will know. Generally, in terms of IT, we break it up to three things: people, process, and technology. Right? That's the basic thing that we can look at. So we could now classify our information and our measures based on that. So some of the things we could look at, for example, from the people perspective, is on the people's perspective, you should have someone at a C-level called Chief Information Security Officer. So now this person basically will be able to champion through, to pull through information security projects and make sure it's enforced. Because what we usually see is that in fact, some of our listeners who are IT execs would probably share this same vision. They'll say that, look, I'm proposing a project to harden our firewall. So I bring it over to my boss, who happens to be from the accounts or audit. Now, we've got two groups of people that don't talk the same wavelength. Yeah, one group says, okay, in order to keep our information secure, we got to spend some penny. The other one wants to keep every penny, right? So there's no jive there. And when you have someone who's a Chief Information Security Officer, his role will be to push this through. He doesn't need to, a lot of people think that you have to be a listed company, you have to be a large multinational to have CISO. No, you don't have to.
Okay, so in this case where you talk about the framework, what about these companies, and they don't even have a Chief Information Officer? Right. Do they then hire a consultant to do that role?
Yeah, they could do that. Yeah, there are some companies that actually, in fact, even contact us to say, can you please, act as a Chief Information Security Officer till we find that person. Yeah, that's possible. Or sometimes they would actually hire a consultant to help them find that Chief Information Security Officer. Or let's say they have an IT manager, but he just doesn't fit the role yet. And we could train him up to that level.
BFM 89.9, the business station.